I realized I had the mic turned off. My apologies. Let me start over. For anybody that doesn't know who I am Sarah. I'm one of the admins of the CBD Oil Users Group, and I do these monthly Q&As to answer any questions anybody has. Before I get started, I'm going to go through some of the more frequently asked questions. So let me make sure. Okay, yeah, now it's registering. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm going to go through some of the more frequently asked questions before I do the questions that were submitted and live chat questions. Sorry about that, my dog is in here. So some of the really frequently asked questions, of course she wants to play the second I do this. Hold on. She's joining us in our stream today. Anyways, so I've got a few questions here that I'm going to go through before I get into everything else. One of the more frequent questions I get asked is about drug testing. I always get asked, will this product cause a positive drug test, or, you know, positive for THC, that kind of drug test? And the answer is that it depends. If you are taking any kind of product, anything that has any amount of THC in it, I would say that it is possible that you could test positive. Even minuscule amounts. You know, if you are worried about testing positive on a drug test, do not take anything that has any trace amounts of THC. Your best bet is going to be taking something that has none that has been detected, at least. And there's something you need to be aware of when looking at lab tests to determine if it actually has THC, because don't just trust a company. You know, don't just trust them when they say, oh no, it doesn't have any THC. Look at lab tests for whatever their product is to really see if it has none. And you need to make sure that the lab test you're looking at doesn't have it where it says something like, they phrase it a little bit differently depending on the lab, but it'll have something where it may say that it's below the limit of detection for what they can get an actual number, but there might still be something there. You want something that says there's 0% THC. You don't want something that just says, oh, we just couldn't detect it because, you know, our instruments weren't maybe sensitive enough or something like that. So that's something to be aware of. So I would say if you need to worry about drug testing, don't take something with THC in it at all. Trace amounts, you'll hear people say, oh, it just has so little in it that it won't come up, you know, you should be fine, you have to be taking so much of it to get it to test positive. That's pretty much a flat lie. We've had so many people test positive and lose their jobs, even when taking trace amounts, that I don't want that to happen to anybody. So that's for drug testing. One of the other really common questions I get asked is about full spectrum versus isolate. You know, what is the difference? The main difference is that full spectrum generally refers to products that contain the widest range of naturally occurring cannabinoids and terpenes and things like that came from whatever strain they made their product out of, like the extract they got from the product or from the plant to make their product. It contains all of it, basically, that was present, that they could at least keep intact when they did their extraction process. So that does mean trace amounts of THC. Obviously, CBD is going to be the big one, but it does also possibly have trace amounts of maybe some CBN that converted from the THC, CBG, some CBC. Like, it contains the wide range, plus the terpenes. Isolate, however, is a product that has just CBD. That's pretty much it. That's the main difference. It shouldn't have detectable amounts of THC, but some of them are using CBD isolate that's not 100 or not 99.9% pure. Some of them are using like 98% pure down to 95% pure CBD, and there are still technically trace amounts, but it's so close to being pure CBD that they can call it an isolate, and that's when you need to look at lab tests to clarify. So that's the main difference. Full spectrum, you pretty much always have to worry about THC. So I would stay away from full spectrum products for drug testing purposes, and for isolate, double check the labs to make sure it's truly a pure CBD product. There are also things where you'll see broad spectrum. These are kind of new things that I'm still learning about a little bit myself. Broad spectrum generally means it contains a wide range of cannabinoids, maybe not what it had naturally, and they've removed certain things, like they've tried to remove excess THC. So you'll see stuff where it says it has CBD, CBN, or not CBN, can't have CBN with no THC. It'll have CBD, CBC, maybe some CBG and things like that, but no THC. And how they're getting to that process, it just kind of depends on the company. And a lot of them, sometimes I think a lot of them are, using CBD isolate and other isolated cannabinoids and then adding extra terpenes to get that broad spectrum. It just depends on what you're looking for which product you want to go to. The other question I get asked is about drug interactions. What we know is that CBD interacts with a group of the P450 group of enzymes in your liver. And basically what happens is it can cause certain medications that also deal with that group to not metabolize quite in the same fashion that they normally would if you weren't taking CBD. It can make the drugs last longer in your system in higher concentrations than you were intending when you took the regular dose without CBD. So all that really means is just to check to see if your drugs are known to interact with that group. And the biggest way to tell often is if they have a grapefruit warning on the label. And then whether or not you actually have any issues is something you probably need to discuss with your doctor and kind of judge for yourself, because I have spoken with like medical marijuana doctors and some professionals in the industry, and truthfully most of them have not seen any interactions that were severe enough that any drugs had to be stopped. It was more of a managing of dosing and adjusting your dosage. And it's a little hard to judge if the dosages need to be adjusted of the prescription drugs because of an interaction, or if it's because the CBD was replacing the need for that prescription drug. So that's something you need to look into for yourself. So for drug interactions, then probably one of the more confusing parts is, what is the difference between hemp oil and CBD oil? The answer is that hemp oil is kind of a name in the industry right now that can mean one of two things. Hemp oil can be CBD oil, or it's going to be a hemp seed oil. So you need to look at lab tests to see which it is. You don't want the hemp seed oil. And I don't mean you don't want it as the carrier in a CBD oil product. You don't want pure hemp seed oil where that's all you're taking. The stuff you find in your grocery store or your health food store, maybe the vitamin store. You don't want pure hemp seed oil because it doesn't contain any cannabinoids. The seeds themselves do not produce CBD or any other cannabinoids, so there's no CBD in it to begin with. But there are products out there like Charlotte's Web. It's called hemp oil, but that's a CBD oil. And the easiest way to know is see if there's lab tests on the product, see if it contains CBD. That's the easiest way to tell them apart. Last thing I'm going to go over before I get started is one of the questions I also get asked is, what is best for X, blank? I can't really answer that for you. I know I would love to be able to just tell you, oh yeah, just take this, but I can't give out medical advice. I can't, recommend things specifically for a certain condition because I'm not a doctor. I have a lot of knowledge about this stuff, but everybody's so different when it comes to these products that what I can do is recommend reputable brands. I can teach you what terpenes are really popular for maybe symptoms of certain things, for anxiety, and things that have terpenes that have shown to benefit for that, and then products that are high in those terpenes or high in other minor cannabinoids. So that's what I can do, and that's what my goal is to educate people to learn what those things are so that they can make decisions for themselves. So if you ask me what is best for X, unless I have that condition, chances are I don't, then I can't really give a recommendation based on a medical condition. So now that that's all taken care of, I'm going to go into the questions that were filled out on the Google Forms. There's only like 8 on there, so this will go pretty fast, and then we can go to the questions on the live chat after. Refrain from, asking questions in the live chat right now, because for some reason, as it goes through, I cannot look it up again. It blinks them out at the top and just they fade away and I can't see it. After the stream is completed, I can see it, but I can't see it while it's streaming. It's really silly, but I cannot go that far back in the chat record. So just refrain from it until I take the banner off the top of the screen or say, you can ask questions now, because I don't want to miss any questions. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. If you ask it now, I probably will not actually see it. I just won't be able to. So moving on, the first question was, I have been thinking more and more about making my own sublingual oils. I want to know if you can mix and match what to put in the oil. An example is a 250 milligram of Lazarus isolate and 250 milligram of Phytodab's full spectrum slab to make a 500 milligram oil. Or should you only use one type per oil, please? You can definitely mix and match. It's, that I wouldn't see any issues with doing. Where I would see maybe some consideration needs to be taken is if you're mixing and matching specific oils, like you say Lazarus isolate, that's a concentrate, and the Phytodab's full spectrum slab, that's also concentrate. Really what you're doing is boosting everything in the full spectrum slab, and that's fine. I don't see any issues because those are 2 concentrates that you're mixing into your own carrier oil. The reason I see certain problems popping up is with oils being added to oils. For example, the Lazarus high potency oil, the actual oil mixed with Charlotte's Web oil, I wouldn't really recommend mixing those 2 together. Not that anything bad would happen, but I don't know. I would stick to making your own products from the concentrates instead of mixing the oils, especially if the oils are different. Like Lazarus is isn't it avocado for some of them? And then Charlotte's Web is either olive oil or coconut. It's just you're getting into mixing, matching the actual oils. It gets a little tricky. But for that, I would definitely, you could definitely do that. One thing I would caution, though, is that, the 500 milligrams, that's, weight-based, pretty much. So for the full spectrum slab, make sure that when you're dosing, if you're trying to dose based on milligrams of CBD and not just milligrams of total cannabinoids, make sure you look at the labs on that slab and make sure it's not 500 milligrams of total cannabinoids for the weight of the slab, and make sure it's actually 500 milligrams of CBD specifically in that slab, because they might just make the slab and then weigh out 500 milligrams and it's for the total of the slab. It's not just specifically CBD. All right. Next question. I'm gonna go back to that one. Let me read this really fast. Some of these are medical questions, so I'm sorry if it seems like I'm skipping it, but like I said, I can't really answer those. Here's one that asked, I'm wanting to use CBD for our 16-year-old son. What are some side effects, if any, I should be cautious of or no? When talking about side effects with CBD, generally you'll hear people say, oh, there are no side effects. And I'd say that's relatively true. I don't know if sometimes when people take the product and they notice suddenly they have a lot of energy and they didn't want that. I wouldn't necessarily say things like that would be a side effect of the oil, because sometimes that can be the intention of the oil they're taking, so it's not really a side effect. So I haven't, for a son, I will say there have been certain things that I've seen for women. I haven't seen this, obviously this doesn't apply to guys, but when talking about side effects, this is one thing I will say that I've noticed, is that for women, for their menstrual cycle, you can find that it will mess with that, definitely. And apparently it can have not a drug interaction in the same way that we talk about like the P450 group, but with birth control and contraceptives like that. There is apparently some way that CBD reduces the effectiveness of it, that a study is showing that. I'm talking to a medical marijuana doctor who's conducting the study, and it's showing to reduce effectiveness, but it's not a drug interaction. So that is something where I would say, that is actually possibly a side effect that people haven't considered. But since, you have a son, it doesn't apply. But I wanted to say that there are things we haven't discovered, but generally there's nothing I would immediately worry about saying, like, oh, this can happen. Some people get headaches, maybe that's a side effect. I don't know if that's necessarily from the CBD, because it's hard to determine if it's the CBD or maybe it's the terpenes or if it's the carrier oil or something else in there. It's hard to determine without knowing what product someone's been taking or what you're interested in taking. Because if you're just taking, CBD isolate, you don't really feel anything. I've never really noticed any difference other than I'm just no longer in pain and I'm feeling better. So I wouldn't say there's anything immediately to worry about, but there are things we haven't quite discovered because we're still studying them. How do you measure dosing when vaping? I ordered a 200 milligram disposable vape pen from CB Distillery. Vaping is one of those things where you don't really dose it out unless you're vaping in concentrates, because you can have e-liquid vapes where you vape the liquid, or you can have vapes where you're vaping the concentrate, which is the isolate, the slabs, the powdery stuff. It's not in a carrier agent or cutting agent. But when you're vaping, I'm going to assume this is about, I'm going to answer this for the vape pen, which is a liquid. You can't really dose based on puffs or, what you think you're taking in, because it can be different each time based on how hot it's getting, how long you're holding the button down, how much you're actually inhaling, if you're holding it, all these kinds of things. You cannot get an exact amount that you're inhaling when you're using liquids, unless I vaped the entire tank in this period, like this one day. Then obviously you got all of it during that day. But if you're doing like a little bit here and there and a little bit there and the next day, you can't say you're taking exact milligram amount. So what people usually do is vaping is immediate. You feel it immediately. If it works, it works. You don't really wait for it to kick in much. It's just you vape. Did you have any relief from your symptoms? No, vape again, within like 5-minute period. It's not something where you sit and wait. Now with vaping for concentrates, you do load, a specific weight, like or a specific amount each time you vape the concentrate, and that's, it uses it up very fast, and you got all of that in that one puff, so that's easier to dose, but you can't really do it with e-liquid. So that's why I say, you just use it until you no longer need it during that whatever session you're taking a session to vape. This one's asking me where in Kansas to get CBD oil. They're finding that it's cheaper to go to a store than it is online. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't live in Kansas, make sure it really is cheaper to go into a store, because this mentions you're on Social Security and things like that. There are a lot of online companies that have discounts, big ones, like 40% off discounts if you qualify. So make sure it really is cheaper to go into store. Some of the online companies have store locators where you can talk to them or check their store locator function on their website to see where they sell it locally, maybe nearby you. I know where I am, there's a store down the road that sells Charlotte's Web, Mary's Nutritionals, Pure Ratios, Green Roads. They sell all of it. And Charlotte's Web especially has a store locator. I think Koi has a store locator too on their website. So you just need to, you know, look through those methods to see if there's something locally for you. Let's see. Yeah, we're already almost done. This one's asking me for the best vape device, not the starter kits. I guess it depends on what you're wanting to vape. Like, are you wanting e-liquid or are you wanting the concentrates? Because I think the best device, it's a kit, but you don't have to buy it as a kit. They don't sell it, you know, like, it's put together by one person as a kit, so it's not a starter kit in the sense that you would think. For concentrates, my favorite is this right here. This is the Ice Stick Pico. It's the E-Leaf battery right here, this black part. And then up here, this silver is the atomizer, the part that actually, you know, melts the concentrate and vaporizes it. This is called the Sayonara from Humboldt Vape Tech. And you can buy them as a kit, but it's not, you know, what I would call a starter kit in the same way people think about most vape starter kits. But this is for concentrates, and this is my favorite. You can use, you know, this battery. It's a really good battery with regular e-liquid tanks, but it just depends on what you want, you know. The e-liquid tank I do have, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like the best of the best, but I rarely vape e-liquid stuff, if at all. I think I've used this. It's been quite a few months since I've used this, and it's got some liquid in it, so it's pretty nasty. I need to clean it out, but it's the, what is this? The Kangertech Subbox Mini C, I think. I think that's what this is. It's good. I mean, it functions perfectly. It's never clogged. It's never malfunctioned. No issues. But I'm sure there's better out there with more controls. But these are the two I like for e-liquid and then for concentrates. And to show the difference, because a lot of people, this has like a little bucket type of thing, and you drop the little, like the concentrate slab or powder in there, and that's how it melts, you know, with contact. And then this is a tank with a little coil in there that's got cotton, and it soaks the cotton up, or soaks into the cotton, and then it's heated up in there and vaporizes it. So that's kind of the main difference. Okay, let me go back to these two. There's a question that said, can you talk about different condenses CBD? What is the best level to get without a prescription for pets, RX, hemp? I think what this is asking is about the different concentrations, perhaps, of CBD, and what's the best level to get without a prescription. Well, for CBD, you know, at least where I am, hemp-derived, you don't need a prescription at all, no matter how strong it is for the CBD for hemp. But different concentrations, you know, you can get, let me give an example. Oop, sorry, Holly. Let me pull out my bottle. Okay, for example, this is, I'll give CB Distillery as an example. I've got this 1,000 milligram bottle from CB Distillery. It's 66.67 milligrams per milliliter. The oil in here is not CB Distillery. This is from my DIY video, but I'm going to show the bottle anyways. And then you've also got this same CB Distillery brand, but this is 2,500 milligrams and 83.33 milligrams per milliliter. This one's obviously stronger, but what you could do is just, you know, take extra of this if you wanted to get the same amount that 1 milliliter of this would take. So, you know, you don't necessarily need to buy a stronger concentration. The reason to buy a stronger concentration is usually honestly to save money. You get cheaper per milligram when you buy bigger bottles with bulk amounts of CBD in them. You're also taking less oil, so you don't have to take, like, when I was on the Everyday Charlotte's Web, I was taking like 2 milliliters full to get the amount I wanted. You know, that's quite a bit of oil to hold under your tongue. Whereas with the Everyday Advanced, that's maybe like 2 drops. So it's easier to dose. You know, it lasts longer with higher concentrations. It's generally cheaper. That's the main difference. For pets, I will say that for the pets versus human oils, The main thing you need to look out for, because CBD is CBD, they take the same stuff we take, they just have different dosing requirements. It's fitting that she's here as I'm talking about pets, but they take the same stuff we take. The only exception is that sometimes human products, made for us, have unsafe carrier oils or unsafe ingredients for our pets, like flavorings and things like that. A lot of the pet ones tend to have extras like fish oils or, oops, sorry, pulling on her hair. Or maybe they're flavored like bacon or fish flavored or things like that for the pets. And usually they're lower dosing, like way less concentrated than human versions. I guess to make dosing easier because you can't accidentally give them so much, but it's often more cost effective just to get a safe ingredient human version anyways, because it's cheaper, and just make sure you dose it correctly. So I wouldn't say there's, I know about brands like CB Distillery has a pet version, Four Corners Cannabis has a pet version, Charlotte's Web has a pet version. Doesn't Lazarus? I think Lazarus has a pet version too. A lot of the brands we recommend have pet versions. They're all safe. It's just which you want to go with. Check lab tests to see if maybe it has something that you think would be beneficial for why you're giving it to your pet. My pet has my Holly here. This is Holly. She won't look at the camera. She's camera shy. She has separation anxiety. So something for anxiety would be good for her. I had another question. This is the last one. It was, they really want to try CBC oil, and I that might mean actual CBD, but CBC is a cannabinoid, so it's hard to tell, for their pain, but I'd like to know the best option to get so I'm not having to purchase several different ones on a very limited budget. But when you also have pain from several different conditions. Okay, so it's just asking for the best overall so we're not wasting money, I'm assuming. I'm going to go based on this is CBD since that's what our group is about. But, the best way so that you're saving some money at the start and you're really setting yourself up for success, what I really recommend doing is, since I can't recommend for medical conditions specifically, but they did mention some, I just didn't read it out, is that, look up terpenes and look up cannabinoids other than CBD, because you're generally going to be looking at mostly full spectrum products when you're treating a wide range of conditions. Look up terpenes, see which terpenes, would be beneficial for your condition. So anxiety, you want something that's more relaxing. So terpenes like linalool would be good for that. Maybe you are fatigued all the time and you want more energy. Terpenes like limonene, which is an energizing terpene, would be good for that. And full spectrum oils should have those things. Maybe you're having pain, you want something that's anti-inflammatory. There are terpenes for that. And same with cannabinoids. For getting help with sleep, CBN, trace amounts of CBN can be beneficial because that's really good for sleep. All those kinds of things. So what I would recommend doing to set yourself up for success right from the start is look at lab tests from any of the recommended brands. Find one that has terpenes and cannabinoids that you've looked at and would be beneficial for your conditions, and pick one that fits those closest. You're not going to find huge amounts of some other cannabinoids because hemp products tend to, we focus on the CBD, but there will be trace amounts in the full spectrum products, because I would say, when you're treating that many conditions, you want something that's full spectrum. And you might find something where you don't have to take different products, like a morning versus an evening product. Maybe you find something that's very neutral in whether it makes you sleepy or energetic. Hemp products tend to be more energizing, but lately, the whole indica versus sativa thing is not so cut and dry. You really just need to look at the lab tests instead of trusting someone that says, oh, it's a sativa, so obviously all hemp's going to be energizing. When it's like, maybe, it tends to be, but there are plenty of oils out there, My Charlotte's Web tends to make me quite tired lately. So I've been taking it before bed, and it, whereas Four Corners Cannabis has limonene in it, so yeah, that one is going to be energizing. Things like that. So that's what I would do. to set yourself up for success is learn what to look for in the lab tests to match the product to, you know, your conditions, so that you get it a good product right off the start instead of just randomly picking. You know, and I say that, but a lot of the reason we have that recommended list is because those brands we found are, you know, not just that they're safe and they're reputable, but they tend to work for a wide variety of conditions people state they have in the group. And we've found that they tend to work for a wide variety. So you're not going to be like taking a shot in the dark if you choose at random, but if you really want to, you know, be set up for success, looking specifically at the lab test can guide you even further. And that was the last question, okay? I'm going to open up, you know, a lot of people don't realize, but this Google form that I link for the event, for the live stream, is always open after the live stream for like the entire month. So it's open for responses right now again, so you can start asking questions and they'll be answered in the next live stream. So it's open. I've cleared all the questions. So now we can move towards live chat. I'm going to try to scroll up as high as I can that it'll let me to see if somebody did ask a question. But other than that, if you have any questions, go ahead and start asking them. Let's see here. Okay, this is a good one. How does CBD cream work if it can't penetrate the third layer of the skin? How do they extract the CBD from the female plants using the flowers and leaves? Okay, so first question is about CBD cream. So we're talking about topicals versus transdermals. I have a really good article on this on our website, but I'll give a general answer here. The difference between topical versus transdermal, and this one's about topical, but I'm going to explain, is that topicals only work on the top 3 layers of the skin. They don't penetrate further. They don't get into your bloodstream. They work locally. Transdermals go further. They do penetrate, and they do get into your bloodstream. The way they can do that is with like permeability enhancers, solvents, solubility enhancers, things like that, because CBD and a lot of other cannabinoids, THC especially, the molecules cannot penetrate through the skin, not on their own. They need help, and that's what the transdermal products do. They have extra ingredients to help it penetrate through. And so the question is, you know, how do they work if they can't penetrate through? You know, how are topicals still helpful? And the reason they work locally, you know, I'm not talking about for anxiety. You know, don't expect a topical to work for anxiety or anything of that nature. They're definitely much better for things that are related to skin conditions, muscle pain, joint pain, things of that nature. But the reason they can work on those conditions is because you still have CB1 and CB2 receptors, like endocannabinoid receptors, in your skin. You know, it's not just in your, you know, all over your body internally, but you also have receptors in your skin, you know, on the surface, so to speak. So that's how it works. It interacts with those receptors in your skin. It doesn't necessarily need to go any further for those skin conditions or localized, you know, muscle pain relief. You know, so that's basically it. A lot of people find transdermals work step further, better. You know, transdermals can have some effect on, you know, anxiety, my migraines, for example, things that are not on the surface, so to speak, because they do get into the bloodstream and they can get throughout the entire body. So that's the main reason for the difference. Then the other question is, how do they extract the CBD from female plants using the flower and leaves? So I'm assuming you know that, you know, CBD itself is found in the trichomes of the plant, on the flower, and a little bit on the stem and stuff like that. How they extract it depends on the company. A lot of them use alcohol extraction, so relatively, I'm going to say harsh solvents, but that's just a broad term. That doesn't mean they're dangerous. Places like Four Corners Cannabis use ethanol, organic ethanol, to do their extraction. Some places use CO2, but you need to be careful because CO2 is recommended as like the safer version, but there's a lot that's left to be desired with that process. I'm not a huge expert on CO2 extraction, to be honest, but I do know that CO2 has a tendency to destroy certain terpenes and things of that nature, or it doesn't properly extract all of it. Ethanol, like what Four Corners Cannabis does and some of these other companies use for their alcohol-based extractions, tends to pull, it's harsher, but it tends to pull a more complete range of the cannabinoids, leaving them intact. You do run the risk of residual solvents, but as long as it's been tested properly and that those solvents have evaporated properly and it's been, you know, processed properly in general, you shouldn't run into any issues with that. Another thing to be aware of is that, I mean, CO2 is still a solvent, technically. They just consider it safer. Sometimes CO2 processed products tend to still go through a form of like an alcohol solvent wash in the end. So really you just want to ask the company, see if they're transparent with you about how they're extracting their CBD from their plants. And the solvent wash at the end and things like that is especially popular for concentrates, for the like CBD concentrate, isolates, those things. Like I said, I'm not a huge expert on extracting CBD, but I do know some of the basic differences, and that's things to be aware of and look out for. Let's see here. What products would be best suited for a 130-pound 10-year-old Great Dane with travel anxiety? I'm not a huge expert for the pet stuff, to be quite honest. I focus mostly on for like humans. For that, I'm gonna say, you know, we have that pet group. I would really recommend asking in that pet group. CBD oil for sleeping. I'm assuming that was triggered by the question I asked about, or I mentioned about CBN. For sleeping, I would say, you know, oils that are, ooh, sorry, I think she wants down. Are you, oh, okay. Freedom. One thing to be aware of is that I say CBN is really good, and it is, but CBN is derived from degraded THC, so THC converts into CBN eventually through, you know, exposure to heat and air and things of that nature as it ages, but that means you need THC to be present to get to CBN. And with hemp products, we don't have much THC to start with. You know, it's less than 0.3%, which makes it a hemp product. So if you don't have much to start with, you're not going to get much CBN. The good news is that the studies I've seen show that tiny amounts of CBN still work. You know, it's very potent for getting any of the benefits. So, you know, I would say, you know, finding an oil that has at least some of the trace amounts of CBN. I've seen some people leave their product, they buy a highest possible THC product they can get out of hemp. Like, I think CB Distillery and Charlotte's Web are two of the ones, maybe, yeah, CB Distillery and Charlotte's Web are two of the ones that have the higher THC contents, and they'll like leave their oil outside so it's exposed and it degrades faster to CBN, and that seems to work for them. Things that are more relaxing for terpenes, you know, look for something high in linalool, maybe something high in myrcene, which is another terpene. Let's see. Let me go through, see if there's any other questions. Remember, if you ask me a medical question, like specifically, I can't answer it for medical conditions. Oh, I forgot to take off the chat. One second. There we go. I'm taking the CBD Distillery 2500 milligram and was helping my anxiety a lot. Now it is a week and it is not helping much. What should I do? I would say, you know, you've been taking it for a week. What dose have you been taking? You know, how much have you been taking? Consider maybe you need to reevaluate how much you're taking. Maybe you need to increase, maybe you need to decrease. But there's a lot of things that I would need to know. Oh yes, so CBN is degraded THC. Answering that. What is better for anxiety or quicker acting, drops or vaping? Vaping is always going to be quicker acting than drops. Drops take time to kick in. Even though it's taken sublingually, they do go into your bloodstream quite fast. Vaping, just in your lungs, it just way faster. Can you vape CBD if you have asthma? Not the best person to ask that, but I will say on our group, if you search that type of question, there are a lot of members I've seen who do not seem to have any issues. What's my opinion of Haley's Hope? Oh, she's crying. Sorry. 1 second. Come here. Come here. She's gonna ignore me. Haley's Hope is reputable. They're targeted towards children. They have their own Flowering for Hope Foundation, I think. Kind of similar to the Charlotte's Web deal, but less popular, less advertised, less on their website that would indicate that they are a CBD product, because, you know, they call their oils botanical oils. They have no mention of cannabinoids on their website that I could see. You really need to contact their foundation to learn basically anything, but they're good, you know. It helps a lot of people. I haven't personally tried it. A little expensive, I would say. How long does CBD last in your system, the effects? How long should I wait before other medications? Well, it depends, you know. It depends on the method of your taking it. Things like a sublingual oil will last maybe like 6 to 8 hours. Vaping, 3 to 4 hours, maybe less. Edibles, those can be 8 to 12 hours. Transdermal lasts quite a while too, apparently up to 12 hours. Same with suppositories. You know, it just depends. CBD itself, you know, that's why I say for feeling the effects of it or the benefits of it, that's how long it lasts. The CBD itself can still be in your system, has quite a long half-life apparently. I can't say what it is off the top of my head, but it's quite impressive how long it stays. How long should you wait before other medications? I've only heard this from some of the brands specifically. Four Corners Cannabis, I think they recommend 1.5 to 2 hours before or after taking, you know, CBD versus your medications. I've heard 1.5 hours if you take your medication, wait 1.5 hours to take the CBD, but if you take the CBD first, wait 2 hours to take the medication. That's generally what is recommended, is around 1.5 to 2 hours either way. Personally, I've taken them at the same time, and my drug is one of the ones that has the grapefruit warning, and I haven't noticed any issues, but it really is highly dependent, and possibly consult your doctor on that one. Show the vape again. I'll show them both. This is the, what is it? iStick Pico. Right, there it goes. It's backwards because I have to be able to see to mirror image it. But this is the iStick Pico, the e-leaf one. It's 75 watts, I believe. That's the battery. Then this portion up here, the atomizer, it's a different brand. It's a Sayonara by Humboldt Vape Technology. You can buy them as a kit. You can buy them separately. I bought them as a kit because I think it was discounted. But yeah, so that's this one. This is the Kangertech, the Subbox Mini C. The battery and the tank, they're both, is another kit, but they're the same thing. Do labs change with each batch in terms of the terpenes that it contains? It can change a little bit. You know, it's never exact. It should still be like, if it's a product, if the strain they're using is always high in, it's high in like beta caryophyllene, that's a terpene, or high in limonene, you should expect every batch to generally be high in those amounts too, but the actual amount in the batch is probably going to vary. However, there are some brands that have swapped their strains, or their who grows the strain for them, like mid-year or mid-harvest. A lot of the time it's from Colorado to Kentucky and things like that, and that obviously you can see a change in the terpenes and even the minor cannabinoids. it's technically a different plant. Let's see here. So that's why it's also important to keep an eye on your batches to make sure they're not changing the product on you. Because they'll keep the CBD content the same because that's what they're mostly advertising. You know, the same amount of CBD in each product. That's going to be the same, but everything else could change. And that's what you need to look out for. Okay, some of these I already went over. We've been thinking of using, or we've been using CBD oil, but thinking of switching to terpenes oil. What's the difference in the two? So I'm assuming you're thinking of switching to using just terpenes in oil. I could see how that would be something intriguing to try. I've never done it. I will say this. You know, your CBD oil, unless you're using isolate, probably, you know, it should have terpenes in it. There's a big thing with something called the entourage effect, and it's where everything tends to work together, you know, to boost the effects of everything. So that's why they say, oh, you always need some THC with CBD for it to work, or oh, you always, you know, need terpenes with the oil to work. So you're losing the entourage effect if you switch to just a terpene-based oil, unless your product was just CBD isolate to begin with, and you've never had the entourage effect. But, yeah, so you're going from cannabinoid-based oil to just terpenes with no cannabinoids. What are terpenes? Terpenes are basically, you can think of terpenes as like plant oils and extracts. They are responsible not just for the scent of the plant and the taste, but also some additional effects and benefits. So terpenes are not exclusive to cannabis at all. There are some that are commonly most found in cannabis, but there are some terpenes that are not found in cannabis at all. Some examples of terpenes are linalool, limonene, beta-caryophyllene, myrcene. So limonene is found in cannabis, but only small amounts compared to the limonene found in citrus fruits like lemons. So sometimes if you're buying terpenes, like pure terpenes, a lot of times it's not going to be cannabis derived, which isn't necessarily a problem because it is extremely expensive to get pure terpenes just from cannabis. Because like I said, limonene may be found in cannabis, but there's a heck of a lot more in lemons, so it's more cost effective to get it from lemons. The terpenes, it'll be the same from either one. There are some people who claim, you know, their purest cannabis derived terpenes are so much better, but on paper, there's no difference. As long as they're extracted properly and processed properly, terpenes are terpenes. Plant-based is just from whatever source they can get is going to be, you know, more cost effective. So different terpenes have different effects as well. So like I said, the limonene is more energizing. Linalool, which is also found in lavender, is quite relaxing. Let's see. Terpenes for chronic pain. You know, I'd say things like myrcene, beta-caryophyllene, humulene. Those are the ones that come to mind for me for pain, specifically like anti-inflammatory things like that. I think pinene too is another one good for pain, but myrcene especially. And if you want something that's really high in myrcene, off the top of my head, Four Corners Cannabis is extremely high in myrcene. They have a very high myrcene content in their strain. Their matte strain, I believe, is how it's pronounced. Can you take CBD if you have had serotonin syndrome? If you can't answer this, who can give me a good answer? Yeah, I can't answer that, sorry. Who can give you a good answer? I don't know anybody that... I've never been asked that before. I haven't even thought of it, to be quite honest. I'm not unfamiliar with serotonin syndrome, let me put it that way. I have migraines, chronic migraines, and there are times when, for drugs you take for chronic migraines where you have to worry about serotonin syndrome, but I've never considered it. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any reason, why there would be a concern, but I don't want to give medical advice for that. If you can message me, there is the name of a doctor, I don't have it off the top of my head, that I could give you the name of, and you could contact him to see if he might know, because he specializes in CBD. He's a medical marijuana doctor, and he does studies for this kind of stuff. Is there much difference in your larger atomizer and an atomizer pen? Which one? Because, let me see. I actually have 3 vapes, technically. I've also got this. This is a pin, like an actual pin. This is just the charger. It twists off. So you have, this is the battery for the pin style. It has the button right here, has a little dial on the bottom to raise or lower the temp, and on top of here you screw in the cartridge, which is the little tiny tank, the disposable ones. So this is a pin. Pins tend to be less, strong, I guess. I mean, the batteries are typically weaker. Sorry, she's crying at the door. They're weaker. You don't have as much options. You can't really change the voltage easily for an exact amount. You're stuck with using the cartridges, which tend to be more expensive. Things like that. For this, are you talking about like the e-liquid or the concentrate one? But either way, these are, you have your screen, you can adjust the wattage or voltage. Obviously they're more powerful, they have bigger batteries in them. This one has tons of different settings. I can load different software on here and change how the vape basically works and heats. What's your opinion of water soluble versus isolates? Here's the thing, isolate and water soluble, they're 2 different things. So you're asking about a product that is not necessarily specifically isolate, and then a type of CBD. So isolate is going to be a CBD isolate, and you can have that in water soluble or non. One thing to stress is that CBD is not water soluble as it naturally comes. It is a fat soluble cannabinoid. It will not dissolve in water. There are some brands that come out with these water soluble products. Maybe it's not CBD isolate water soluble. I've seen that, but it's not necessarily specific to isolate. What a lot of these companies are doing, that I understand they're doing, is they're using things like liposomes to mimic water solubility. So CBD itself, it is still not going to be water soluble, but they're helping it along to try to mimic water solubility. Whether or not that is truly better, I haven't seen any studies to say it is. A lot of them are not freely offering up information about how they're achieving their water solubility. I just say liposomes because that's the most easiest way and most common method I've seen. But water soluble products do tend to be quite expensive. So whether or not it's justified for the cost, I would say typically not. It's just something you have to try for yourself. I haven't tried water soluble personally, so I can't say if it's really worth it. I just know that from feedback in the group, it does not seem to be typically worth it compared to non-water soluble products, because like I said, CBD itself is not water soluble. And you do have the risk of whether or not what they're saying is true. For all you know, without any proof of studies or research or seeing how they're making their product water soluble, they could just be hiking the price up and giving you a non-water soluble product, a regular oil, and just saying it's water soluble. Okay, you said I'm skipping ahead. For this one, for the concentrates pen. Is there much difference between this, and I'm assuming you're meaning the skinnier pins, wax pins? let me put it this way. What I have here is typically considered one of the best ones you can get for concentrates. I just went right away and got the best that I could. It's not like that expensive for what it is, but it is more expensive than a lot of the wax pens out there. But I didn't want to mess with a bad experience. I didn't want to mess with a bad vape pen. So I got like the Rolls Royce of concentrate vapes. But typically, a lot of the wax pens will not have adjustable temperatures. A lot of them won't have adjustable coils. A lot of the wax pens will be the ceramic donut coils, which I have in here, but I do have a set of coils that I can do, you know, anything else. Any other coils. Like the Canthal coils, specifically is a really popular one. I have that for this. You know, so that's one of the differences. But the main one is just adjustability. A lot of the wax pens, you don't have the ability to adjust to your needs and the type of experience you want. And of course, you know, something like this, you can load a lot more into it than a smaller pen. But pens are more discreet for sure, you know. And there are some people like the You Can Evolve pen. They have a one for the You Can Evolve that's a concentrate pen, and a lot of people like that one. You know, I'm not saying they're bad. It's just, if you want like the best of the best, something like this is what I would say. Let me read some more. I've been using Lazarus Naturals with high potency drops. I take 2 drops at a time. I get sleep and just a blah feeling, but with the 10 milligram capsules, I feel happy and energized. Can you tell me why this may be? Don't they have the same terpenes? I'd have to check which capsule. Oh, so the regular capsules, not the ones that are like in the clear jar, because I think the ones in the clear jar are like 100 or 200 milligrams starting, I think. We'd have to look at the terpenes or the lab tests for those, because not all of Lazarus Naturals products are the same, because they have their what is it called, the cycling, is it Cycling Frog? I feel like that's not it, but it's the Cycling something brand, which is still their brand, but they have an isolate for that, and then they have a Lazarus Naturals isolate, so I would need to know exactly which. But just because you go from my capsule to the drops does not necessarily mean the terpenes are going to be the same. Since you say the 10 milligram, I feel like that's the Lazarus Naturals one. So maybe it's not. But it also may be, you know, something where, because the bioavailability of capsules, like swallowing is like 5%, so you're getting not nearly as much of the capsules as you're getting of the drops that you take sublingually. So maybe it is just that you need a lower dose than you're taking in the drops. Maybe you don't need quite so much, and so the capsules is just the right amount for you. See. What is the best terpene for anxiety, and which company has that in their CBD? Linalool is really recommended for anxiety. Hold on, let me pull up the terpene chart. There it is. No, didn't want that. Hold on, I'm gonna look at something. I wanted to see if myrcene was recommended, but I don't think it is. I just know linalool is really good for anxiety. That's one of the most recommended ones for anxiety. Believe it or not, limonene is sometimes recommended for anxiety, because you'd think, you know, oh, I don't want anything energizing for anxiety, but it's not like that. Limonene typically is energizing, yes, and uplifting, but it doesn't mean it's going to increase anxiety. Because I don't have like super bad anxiety like some people, but I do have anxiety. I do take oils sometimes because my anxiety is spiking. And things like the Four Corners cannabis, high in limonene, added limonene in there. It's energizing, but never caused extra anxiety. It actually had the opposite effect. Let's see here. Husband's been taking Charlotte's Web for his seizures. Do you think that's the best brand for epilepsy? So Charlotte's Web has its history with being for, for children with epilepsy. That's generally how it got started for Charlotte. I think Charlotte Figi, her last name's Figi, I think. Could have mispronounced that. But she is a child. I mean, she still is alive. But she had, was it Dravet's syndrome? I think, where she was having like hundreds of seizures a day or something like that. And so they created Charlotte's Web after her, for her. It's one of the most popular. I can't say if it's the best. I don't know. I can't for like a specific medical condition, but it's definitely the most popular. The other one is Haley's Hope. I know if Haley's Hope is another, has a similar history. Maybe Jaden's Juice. All these are like started for kids, but that doesn't mean an adult can't take them. Those are the three I can think of off the top of my head. And I think even Palmetto Harmony was started because of one of the owner's kids has epilepsy. I'm not 100% sure on that one though. But a lot of these companies are started because somebody, they knew, or somebody in their family had it, and they couldn't get a product that would work or have any access to any product in general, so they made their own, and that's how a lot of these companies sprung up. I think I've answered all the questions. Oh, the one about CBD Distillery, I've been taking it for 3 weeks and I'm on 6 drops a day. Is that the one where it's no longer helping? Let me see. Oh yeah, it's not helping as much for anxiety. Let me see, hold on. How much would that be? 6, 3, 1 second. It's just, let me put it this way. You really need to keep, just because a dosage or a serving size worked for you initially does not mean you might not need to change it. Or, I said that backwards. You need to always constantly be evaluating whether or not you need to raise or lower your dose. And personally, for me, I started very low, built up to like 50 milligrams a day, stayed on that for a month or two, and then I noticed I needed to drop back down to like 25 or less milligrams per day. I couldn't stay on the 50 milligrams anymore. I needed to readjust my dose. I was dropping back down to a dose that was something for a maintenance dose. So just because it's no longer working, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to take more. You might need to take less. So it's just mess around with your dose a little bit. Keep a log. I have on our files section a log page that you can print you can put the date, the time, how much you took, what you took, and then you can put when you felt relief, the time that you felt relief, how much relief you got, things like that. And you really keeping track of that will help you narrow down exactly where you fit for what dose helps you. Should I get a medical marijuana card or just do CBD for my chronic pain? That's really personal. You'll get higher THC stuff with medical marijuana, but depending on where you are, maybe medical marijuana, the selection is not quite so good. Maybe, it's way more costly than CBD stuff. That's going to be something that's individual. I know if you're in like Colorado, you're going to get a much wider range, but recreational is still pretty good there, so you don't necessarily need it. It just depends on your specific situation. Let's see. Can you explain the difference? I know if it looks like I'm skipping your question, if you ask like a specific medical condition question, I can't answer it. Can you explain the difference in the 3 kind of bluebird, classic, etc., etc.? Okay, so the things with the bluebirds is that their classic is the one that has just hemp extract, so like CBD, and just hemp seed oil, if I remember correctly. It's the bare bones basics. The complete is I'm gonna pull it up just to make sure I don't get them mixed up. The complete, well, if this will load for me. Yeah, the complete is the hemp extract that has been heated, so like the actual CBD, plus hemp terpenes and the hemp seed oil. I'm pretty sure it still has hemp seed oil. It might have olive oil. Don't check. But it also has raw extract, because a lot of people don't realize this, but the cannabis plant, when it grows, does not produce CBD, does not produce THC. It produces acid precursors, CBDA and THCA, and only when we process it, we heat it, we decarb it through decarboxylation, we convert it into CBD and THC. Now, when the raw plant is tested, sometimes you'll see some minor amounts of THC and CBD just from curing processes with like the sun heating down on it when it's growing. Some of it naturally converts, but to really get a CBD product, we have to decarb it to convert it. So the complete has the raw stuff that hasn't been decarbed, and it also has the stuff that has been decarbed. Then the, where did it go? Oh, it says it also has steam distilled hemp terpenes, so more terpenes added to it. Yeah, it has olive oil. Got it. Okay, and then the signature is the classic with added frankincense and black seed oil. So I've heard that the signature is more energizing and the complete is more relaxing. It really depends on you, but those are the main differences. It's just what you're wanting to get out of your product. For chronic nausea, apparently humulene and myrcene are really good. How do you know if your CBD oil has terpenes? It should say, if it's full spectrum, it should have terpenes to begin with, as long as they're not lying about full spectrum. But the way to know is lab tests. They should ideally have a lab test for terpene content. Terpene testing is not as common as potency testing for cannabinoids is. I'm hoping in the future, you know, it'll be a push towards having more complete lab tests. Terpene is still not the standard. You know, I'd say potency testing is a industry created standard. You know, there's no regulations, but the industry has realized, you know, consumers are demanding it, so potency testing is becoming a standard, but terpene testing is not yet a standard. So your product may not have terpene testing. Ideally, we hope it does, but that's how you're going to be able to tell exactly what it has. Otherwise, I guess you're just going to have to trust them at their word, which isn't ideal. How do I find what terpenes are in the CBD oil? So the lab test, yeah, if you go, for Lazarus Naturals, it's hit or miss, but if you go on the specific product that you're interested in, you'll see potency test, like a tab for the potency test and like heavy metals. You can look at all the labs, and some of them have terpene tests, some of them don't, but it's all located there if they do have it. I'm taking the Bluebird Complete, and it's amazing. I'm only taking close to 10 to 12 milligram per day. Is it working so well because it's the complete version? Maybe. I mean, have you tried the others, you know, or any other one? But if you just tried that one and it's working, I mean, hey, I don't really question when it works. I'm just glad it does work. But as long as you're taking it sublingually, you know, 10 to 12 milligram per day, that's not like nothing. Some people just need more. Some people do microdosing and they need less. The Bluebird Complete really makes your heart rate decrease. Well, the only difference is, you know, the raw versus I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I'd say, you know, it's got to be something in it, the terpenes, or maybe some of the other cannabinoids that the others don't have. Let's see. Okay, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm gonna wrap it up pretty close here. If there's any last minute questions, I'll wait to see if they get added really fast. For nerve pain, you know, not for a specific medical condition I can't recommend, but I will say that for my favorite transdermal for my muscle pain, nerve pain, anything pain, has been Myoderm, or, where is it? Or Apothecana. This stuff. I really like this stuff. And I recently did try, mini review for a second, is I did try their, this sample of the, where is it? Is the extra strength relieving body oil compared to the extra strength relieving body cream, you know, oil versus cream. The oil is more cooling feeling, and I'd say the oil feels stronger, believe it or not. Maybe it is, but I think I like the oil better. It absorbs faster. I can use it on my scalp for my migraines. I like the oil. By the way, if anybody's curious, I did try the bath bomb, and I will be writing a review, like full review, video review too. But preliminary explanation of how that went is to be expected. It was nice, don't get me wrong. It smelled amazing, but I typically take CBD primarily for my migraines, and it had zero effect on my migraines. To be expected, it's a topical, essentially, when you get at it, because it's not transdermal. It doesn't contain anything that'll really help it get into my bloodstream. But it did surprisingly work on a really annoying back pain I had had all day. And I know it could be like, oh, well, maybe it's just the bath helped that, but I had taken a bath earlier because it was so bad, and it did nothing for my back pain, but pop that bath bomb in there and it somehow helped. It was very greasy though. Like, you could see the oil from the bath bomb skimmed across the surface of the bath, and it just like coated my skin. So yeah, it was pretty much exactly what I expected it would be. It was this bath bomb, if anybody's curious. This one that I had posted that photo of. For whether or not it helped me sleep, not really. I mean, it was just a relaxing bath in that aspect. But I'll do the full review of that written and video to go with it. Oh, what brand was that? Were you asking? Well, here's the Apothecana. I know it's hard to see, but it's listed on our extended list if you need the full name. And then here's the Myoderm. Difference between Charlotte's Web and Bluebird? 6 times. Well, they use different strains. I mean, Charlotte's Web is using whatever strain they use, and Bluebird is using a different one. So the minor cannabinoids and terpenes are going to be completely different from both. Excuse me, ma'am. Are you having a hissy fit and a temper tantrum? Man, she's like digging in the pillow next to me, huffing and puffing. So it's just, they're just different strains, different products that they're using. So I'd really compare the lab tests. Referents have high CBDV. I don't know off the top of my head, to be quite honest. We'd have to look at some lab tests. Vape pens for flower. I can't answer that because I don't have any experience with dry herb vapes. Basically, that's what they're called. Because I don't have any access to stuff because I only use hemp products. Stop. But I will say, I do know in some of the other groups I'm part of, they like the PAX 3. Very expensive when I looked at it, just out of curiosity. But that's a very big name brand that people like to use. I will say that vaping is, you know, one of the fastest ways to get into it. So if you're saying smoking versus vaping and asking more about that, vaping is going to be healthier. You can have a much better chance of adjusting to what cannabinoids you want to vaporize and evaporate, basically, that you inhale, because a lot of people don't realize, but smoking is actually not as potent in the sense of precisely heating to get the most out of it. Whereas vape pens, if you can adjust the temperature, you get to pick and choose, and you get to keep it from, you know, combusting, you know, burning, and getting some of the lesser desirable things in what you would get in smoke. Ultimately, I know there's tons of people that like smoking, and that's fine. It's just health-wise, vaping tends to be better and more efficient, typically. And you actually get more cannabinoids out of vaping than you would get out of smoking. What you're actually burning and degrading when you're smoking, you get less of. I kind of rambled on there. Doesn't make sense to me either, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, she really does want out of the room. I'm not letting her out just yet, though, because then she'd annoy my boyfriend like crazy, so she's stuck here with me. As she's slobbering over my hand right now. Do you want to say bye one last time? Nope. Oh, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Where are you going? I'm sorry, I'm spinning. Okay, this is Holly, in case anybody's wondering. She's adorable. She's being frustrating right now, but this is her. Say hello. Hello. Okay, I'm gonna close it up now so that I can let her out, and we're going on 1 hour and 30 soon, so which miter do I use for migraines? I use the Pro. I think that one's the best, most cost effective. So yeah, so thanks everybody for attending. If you had a question that didn't get, you know, seen for whatever reason, I tried to go through and answer everything that wasn't like medical, specific like medical conditions. You can always ask the question on the Google form, which is always open right until before the stream. I opened it back up so you can submit questions. As always, you can ask questions in the group. You can message me. I can try to help in any way I can and direct you towards information that's helpful. We always do these videos or live streams every month, usually the very beginning of the month. That's how they've been going, usually on Sundays now. Seems that that works for most people. You can also, you know, you'll be able to rewatch this if need be. It's going to be uploaded on our YouTube channel, and it'll stay on Facebook. So yeah, so thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.